Hello everyone. Today's lecture is about era of militant nationalism from 1905 to 1909. In this lecture, we are broadly going to discuss four topics. The very first topic is factors which led to the growth of militant nationalism. The second topic is Partition of Bengal. The third topic is Sudishi and boycott movement, and we will conclude with the Surat Split of 1907. So let's look them one by one. The very first topic is factors which led to the growth of militant nationalism. And the first point under this heading is education. With the growth of education, people got awareness, they got reasoning ability, they got to know about a lot of other freedom struggle. For example, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, they got inspiration and motivation from them. They got to know about the drain of wealth. They got to know the reason behind the state of underdevelopment, the state of poverty, the state of unemployment in India. And that's what created discontent among the educated youth. And from here onwards, the educated youth actively participated in the anti-colonial struggle. The second point is dissatisfaction with the achievement of moderates. In 1880s, some politically conscious people, they came together and they formed an organization called Indian National Congress. And that political organization adopted constitutional and peaceful means. They relied heavily on 3 P's, that is prayer, petition, and pleading, to get political reforms. But over a period of time, we have seen that they were failed to achieve the desired outcome, the desired political reforms. And there was no sign that Britain is giving them any sort of self-government or parliamentary democracy in India. And so this created dissatisfaction among a particular group, which will later on called as extremist. Next point is militant school of thought. So there was one school, militant school of thought, which was prevailing back then. This militant school of thought believed that they have to adopt bold means to achieve the end. There should be self-sacrificing attitude. They should be ready to sacrifice their lives in order to achieve independence. And they were not in favor of any constitutional and peaceful means, because they were frustrated and disillusioned with the achievement of the moderates. So they supported the militant school of thought, and famous leader of this school of thought are Bal Gangadhar Tilak, Lala Lajpat Rai, Bipin Chandra Pal, Arvind Ghosh, Raj Narayan Bose, Ashwini Kumar Datta, and so on. The fourth point is international influence. There are few international events. For example, Ethiopia defeating the Italy, the Japanese defeating the Russians in 1905. These two events inspired our militant school of thought leaders that if such a small African and Asian nation can defeat Europeans, then why can't we? That was a very fundamental question they got with the international influences, with the international events. So they realized that they have the capacity and they can defeat the British, because the Europeans are not invincible. The next point is role played by Lord Curzon. Lord Curzon came to India in 1889 and he was there till 1905. So he came to India with an objective that he had to curb the militant nationalism which was there, and including the nationalist movement. And it was very clear in his mind that he had to ensure peaceful demise of Indian National Congress. And so in this direction, he took few steps. The very first one is Calcutta Corporation Act. Under Calcutta Corporation Act, he reduced the elected Indian members. He reduced the number of elected Indian members because Indian members back then were supporting the nationalist movement, the anti-colonial struggle. So in order to have control over these people in the Calcutta Corporation, as well as to curb the nationalist movement, he reduced the elected Indian members from the Calcutta Corporation through this act. The second point is Official Secret Act. Official Secret Act was introduced to curb the freedom of the press because press was playing a very fundamental role in increasing the political awareness and political consciousness among the people. Press was playing a very crucial role to bringing them together against their colonial master. So in order to, so that no act of the press should bring dissatisfaction against the government, Lord Curzon came out with the Official Secret Act. Then he came out with the Indian University Act. He appointed Relic. Indian University Act. He appointed Relic Commission, and on the basis of its recommendation, he came out with the Indian University Act. Why he chose university? The reason behind this is that the universities were the hub, or I would say the center of the nationalist movement. The educated youth were there in the universities, and from there they were playing active role in the anti-colonial struggle. So in order to have a greater control over the university, he came out with the Indian University Act, and with this act he reduces the autonomy of the universities and ensure greater control of the government over these universities. And the final nail on the coffin was through the Partition of Bengal. Lord Curzon announced that there will be Partition of Bengal. In 1903 itself, he announced that there will be Partition of Bengal. Why Bengal? Because Bengal was the epicenter of the national movement. Bengal was the epicenter of the Indian freedom struggle. So in order to break that nerve, he came out with the Partition of Bengal in 1905. So our next topic is Partition of Bengal. So the official reason given by the Lord Curzon was that the population of Bengal is too much. It's somewhere around 78 to 80 million people. And it is very difficult to ensure administrative efficiency, administrative effectiveness, or the development of these regions. So he divided the Bengal into two parts. The eastern part is called East Bengal, which is modern day Bangladesh, which include province of Assam as well, and with its capital in Dhaka, which is modern day Dhaka. And the western part is known as Bengal, which includes province of Bihar and the province of Odisha, with its capital in Calcutta. The British rule very carefully divided Bengal into two parts. They divided Bengal into two parts based on two principles. One is religion, another one is language. The eastern part was the Muslim majority part, and the western part was the Hindu majority part. And this part, they have reduced Bengalis in the minorities. Bengalis were in minority in the western part, where they were dominating. Okay, and here Muslims are here, but here the Urdu speaking people were there, and Muslims are there, but here there will be Bengali majority people are there. So based on the religion and the language, they have divided Bengal into two parts with a single motive, with a single agenda in mind, that they have to break the nerve that is Bengal. Because Bengal was the epicenter and Bengal was, I would say, everything back then in the Indian freedom struggle. Yes. So he announced partition of Bengal in 1903, and which officially that was announced in July 1905, and it took place on 16th October 1905. The partition took place, people were mourning, they bathed in Ganga, they were singing songs, they were addressing assemblies. They have done everything to ensure the partition should not take place, but yes, in the end partition took place, and there were two groups. One is moderate, another one is extremist. They played their role. Moderates, under the leadership of K.K. Mitra, Sundarnath Banerjee, they came out various newspapers like Indian Opinion, Sanjeevani, Hitabadi. With these newspapers and their political meetings and with their propaganda ideas, they were creating an educated opinion among the masses that in order to exert, in order to exert the influence over the British rule, to avoid the unjust partition of Bengal, but that didn't yield any result. Similarly, extremists also playing important role to control to avoid partition of Bengal, but that didn't yield any result, and the formal partition took place on 16 October 1905. So here our next topic comes is that the Sudishi and the boycott movement. So with the announcement of partition in 1905 session of Banaras under the leadership of Gopal Krishna Gokhale, INC passed resolution, that is the resolution supporting the Swadeshi and boycott movement, and they condemned the reactionary policies of the Curzon and the partition of Bengal. What do we mean from Swadeshi and boycott? Swadeshi means basically Indianization. We have to adopt Indian goods and services, and we have to boycott foreign goods and services. For example, we boycotted the Liverpool salt, the Manchester clothes, the liquor which we are getting from the Europe. So we started boycotting those things. And in Swadeshi means we have introduced the Indian goods and services. And later on, this Swadeshi, the idea of Swadeshi became broadened, and with this we introduced few elements here. For example, we came out with the National Council on Education, Bengal Institute of Technology. We even set up indigenous industries. For example, Chidambaram Pillai set up the steam navigation engine industry in Madras. We even expanded our scope of Swadeshi in the cultural aspect, because the Abhinandannath Tagore, he established the National Oriental School of Arts to dominate, to break the Victorian naturalism with the paintings of Ajanta and Mughals. It took inspiration from them. So in Swadeshi movement, we have broadened the idea and we have included each and every possible things. So now here in 1906 session of Calcutta, under the leadership of Dadabhai Naoroji, for the first time we introduced Swaraj. Congress passed resolution on Swaraj, and first time we introduced Swaraj word. But the meaning of Swaraj was not defined. So for extremists, the meaning of Swaraj was complete independence from the British rule, and for the moderates, Swaraj means a self-rule under the British crown. And the extremists wanted to expand this movement from Bengal to the rest part of the India, but moderates were not willing to go that far. But extremists were satisfied that the goal of Swaraj was introduced. Here comes later on, this was the cause of concern, because extremists were pushing so hard that there should be anti-colonial struggle in the rest of the India, which should include the Swadeshi boycott, and along with it there should be passive resistance. So next topic is Surat Split of 1907. So as we already know that the moderates, they were not willing to go so far, but the extremists wanted to spread the movement in the entire country. So they wanted a strong resolution from the INC. So now the next fight was for the leadership. The extremists wanted that there should be session in Nagpur, which was the part of the central province. But the moderates, they wanted that session should be held in Surat, which was part of Bombay province. And there was a rule of INC that the host province will not have a leader of its own state, of its own province. But the extremists wanted session to be held in Nagpur because they wanted either Tilak, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, or Lala Lajpat Rai to be the chairperson. And if Congress will hold session in Surat, then that will ensure that Tilak won't be the chairperson or the president of Congress. But back then, the INC was dominated by the moderates, so they decided that the session will held in Surat under the leadership of Raj Bihari Ghosh. So both the parties took the rigid position and there was no room for compromise. The extremists wanted that at least Raj Bihari Bose should pass a strong resolution to support the boycott movement, to support the Swadeshi, and also include passive resistance. Passive resistance means now they won't pay any taxes, they will not pay any revenue to the British government. They were willing to go that far, but Indian National Congress, dominated by moderates, were not willing to go that far because they believe that whatever they have done so far will go in vain. So in order to avoid that, they didn't want to pass such a strong resolution. So they came out with a resolution in which they declared that Swaraj, that means self-rule under the British Crown through the constitutional means only, is the goal of the Congress, and that led to the split between the extremists and the moderates. So how this session fizzled out? The very first point is the division between the extremists and the moderates through the Surat Split. The second point is that the government used severe tactics and repression in order to fizzle out the struggle. The next point is that the movement become leaderless. How few leaders got arrested. For example, Tilak was deported. He got arrested because of his seditious writing in Keshari newspaper. Lala Lajpat Rai and Ajit Singh got deported, and other leaders like Bipin Chandra Pal and Arvind Ghosh, they retired from the active politics so that the movement become leaderless. And then people don't know how to tap the energy, how to guide this mass struggle. There was no direction, no guidance to guide the mass struggle. And the moderates were pacified by the promise of the British government that there is a constitutional reform coming up forth. And that led to the end of the Swadeshi and the boycott movement and the struggle, which started with the partition of Bengal. Thank you. This is all in this session. Thank you.